Our Across the Aisle segment tonight, Democrats are accusing Republicans of canceling a hearing on Russia to protect President Trump. The committee was set to meet with former Director of National Intelligence James Clapper, former CIA Director John Brennan, and former United States Deputy Attorney General Sally Yates. But instead, they will have a closed briefing with FBI Director James Comey and NSA Director Michael Rogers. Ranking member on the House Intelligence Committee, Democrat Adam Schiff, is accusing Chairman Devin Nunes of choking off public information. But are Democrats just grasping at straws here? Take a look.
I think this is a serious mistake. Some weeks ago, the chairman and I signed a bipartisan written agreement that we would conduct this investigation in part in closed session and in part in open session. We have both recognized several times since we agreed to the scope of our investigation that it was very important to bring the public into the investigation as much as we could so the country would understand what we were looking at, what progress we were making, what the issues were, and most fundamentally, why the American people should care.
With me now, Democratic strategist Jessica DeLoach. Jessica, good to see you again.
You too. Thanks, Liz.
Thanks for being here. Jessica, let me just jump right into this. Before we even get into, I guess, the smoking gun the Democrats are looking at here, when we hear Congressman Schiff say that he wanted to have a bipartisan investigation, that really bothers me listening to it, because I think of all the committees in Congress, the House Intelligence Committee is the most critical that it remain bipartisan, that it not be tinged by any sort of weaponization or politicalization here. But he's the one who sat there during the hearings and listed, he had a prepared statement of accusations against President Trump for associations to Russia without any kind of evidence. And to me, that's just politicizing.
Sure. I hear you loud and clear. And I think that there are several ways that one could look at this. And I think what we have to think about is going back to Representative Schiff and how his tone has now changed. And what we're hearing through the media and through different reports of the actual news that we know is real is that he has seen information that's the same information that Nunes has seen. And all of a sudden, whatever it was that he saw, it has caused him to change his tone. So what we know is that he now has some sort of cause for alarm, just like Senator Mark Warren has pointed out how suspicious a lot of this activity has been. I think one of the things that's driving the Democrats' reaction to this is how sensitive everything is, how time is of the essence, how I do believe both sides do want transparency when it comes to moving through what is going on, because it's so outrageous, these claims, but every day something new breaks. And so I think, yes, you're right about bipartisanship and wanting this committee to not be mired in any sort of politicization, but one could also argue that when Nunes ran to Paul Ryan first, before going to his committee, and then when he went to the White House and went to Trump, that was politicizing a situation as well. He took power out of the hands of the committee and really undercut their ability to do their job.
Right. I understand that. I think Nunes actually apologized. I don't know. I wasn't there whether that was the right decision or not, but it could also be argued. And I guess this is kind of where I'm coming from. I didn't think Nunes owed them too much of an apology because they didn't look at those intelligence reports themselves. I don't understand how this investigation into, the wiretapping allegations or this classified information that's been leaked, why weren't those intelligence reports the very first thing that they looked at? Why did Schiff, was he so busy, making up these accusations about Russia that he didn't even have time to look at these reports himself?
Well, I think the problem was the nature in which the information was revealed and who had it in their hands first. I mean, one thing that we know would be traditional would be that Nunes would have taken that information to Schiff. They would have then taken it elsewhere, hopefully to the committee first. And so everything's very wonky about how this information was released, who had it in their hands first, and then where it went. So it is all very confusing.
No, it is confusing, but I think that might be a commentary on how politicized the intelligence community has begun. Because if Congressman Nunes, if his source is in fact a whistleblower within the intelligence community, and we don't know that for a fact, that's just, conjecture at this point, it would make the most sense. If he felt that he needed to go directly to the White House because of the severity of the information, that he couldn't share it with his Democratic colleagues on the Intelligence Committee, that says to me that he was afraid that his Democratic colleagues would tell their friends in their network in the intelligence community, and that whistleblower would be retaliated against for the information that he revealed to Nunes. That concerns me.
But to frame the argument that way would be to do two things. One would be to discount the fact that there are also Republicans on this committee who deserve that information quickly as well. And also it would be to say that Nunes he had a responsibility to Trump before his country. And what we know is that our congressmen are elected to do what's best for the people and to keep that transparency front and center. And that's not what happened here. Now, the other problem is that if this has to move to some sort of outside or some independent investigation, that can't happen unless a bill is passed and signed by the president, which means this could drag out for a year.
Right, and I guess I don't interpret Nunes going to talk to President Trump or revealing this information to the White House as loyalty to Trump. I mean, it's classified information of the highest nature that has been leaked. The president has that information. He is in charge of the national security of our nation. Naturally, that's the first person, regardless of your political stripe, who should be getting that information. And I guess it just goes back, and this was originally what I wanted to talk about anyway, and it seems to me that Congressman Schiff is very, very concerned about Russia meddling in our election. And I think, Jessica, you and I talked about this before. We're both concerned about that. That's not something that's partisan. People on both sides of the aisle acknowledge that Russia meddled. Fortunately, none of our vote tallies were impacted, but they certainly waged a propaganda campaign, a disinformation campaign that could have, we don't know the exact numbers, could have influenced the election, and that's wrong. But in this investigation that's been ongoing since last July, since 4 months before the election, at this point, what are Democrats expecting will be a smoking gun? What do they expect to find in this investigation?
Well, I can tell you one thing that they're probably not looking for, and this is something that's important to be articulated. I don't think that Democrats are making the claim at all that that Russia's interference in our elections is what caused Hillary Clinton to lose. I think that would be a stretch. Did they have some influence? Yes, most likely they probably did. I think going back to what you just said about how people on both sides, know Russia did wrong by the United States. We're trying to figure out exactly how they got in. And the question is, did they do this through a connection with Trump's campaign? So you have had a bunch of news that's broken, that's basically leading people to think, whoa, maybe there is a correlation here, because there was a report that broke about Trump transition team staffers possibly purging their phones of information in case of being called into a hearing. That's a huge red flag. And also, we still don't know where Nunes got his information. And now there's a storyline about how he could have possibly gotten it from the White House. And Sean Spicer can't confirm or deny that that's the case. So there are lots of red flags right now.
Right.
And we're all just trying to figure it out.
And this is why I think it gets so sticky with the closed hearing, the open session, what have you, because that classified information, because everything that we're talking about is classified, they can't talk about it in front of us. So how can we know the facts if we can't hear the classified information? So messy here. The part that I think is good that's coming to light is the ties that Paul Manafort had to Russia, or to the pro-Russian Ukrainian president, to the Russian oligarch. That's extremely shady. I mean, I'd almost categorize Manafort as a mercenary, and I commend President Trump for firing Manafort from his team once he found out those connections. But if the financial ties, if that sort of financial ties are what Democrats are looking for, that it bothers them that the Trump campaign was associated with someone, then that standard should be held for ties that the Clintons had, for example, to Russia as well, and not simply going on a witch hunt, I'll call it, against the president because they don't agree with him.
Sure, and I hear you loud and clear there, and I think that is definitely a thread to follow. Unfortunately, though, well, not unfortunately for some people are happy that Trump was elected president, but if this is a story that follows him, that is very bad for his presidency. It's overall bad for the GOP. It's not something that the party couldn't recover from if that came to be the case, but that's going to be what the story is. The longer this goes on, the less could be made about Hillary Clinton.
Right, and that goes back to my point, that very original point about the how political Schiff is being in the House Intelligence Committee hearings, how he was harping on this unsubstantiated allegation against Donald Trump having connections to Russia when we have all this information about this leaking of classified information. And to me, that's where it becomes political. Jessica, great conversation. Thanks for being here.